the machines, we wanted to sell the machines. It doesn't matter that America was at war with them or what they were using them for. But in reality, these machines were serviced like once a month. Someone from IBM actually had to physically go to the concentration camps to service these machines. You had the Vatican bankrolling World War II. You had the United States. You had companies right here in the U.S. giving the Nazis money. It wasn't like they just all of a sudden, had all this money to become a war machine. We were bankrolling it because there's big money to be made through war. And that's just something that people don't want to ever admit, but it's absolutely true. Corporations love wartime because there is just so much profiteering that they can partake in. Anyway, let me get back into this here. So we had the Nazi rocket scientists come here, and we also had Nazi, basically they were scientists and they were involved in mind control. And as bizarre as this sounds, this is, again, absolutely true. This is a program that was known as MK Ultra. And if you actually dig into this, you'll find other programs like Monarch and other mind control programs where basically what the idea is to torture someone to the point where they develop a multiple personality. They split. You do something so sick and twisted and heinous to this person that they just can't take it. Their psyche fractures. And the psychiatric world calls this multiple personality disorder. Many Christians view this as demon possession. This is basically breaking the person's will and opening them up for demonic possession. Again, if you look into Aleister Crowley, who is absolutely an evil, despicable person, and you look into Jack Parsons, who, if you've ever heard of JPL, which is Jet Propulsion Laboratories, or Jack Parson Labs, this was the early days of NASA. This guy invoked demons before every attempted shot at launching a rocket. But you will find over and over and over again a long history of drug use, sexual depravity, and in many cases, rape and sacrifice, specifically child sacrifice. But when you're looking at this MK Ultra-like program, this mind control program, the idea was if you could create a multiple personality in someone, you could use them for anything and they would never know it. They would be like the perfect Manchurian candidate. But you could use them as a spy. You could send them into enemy lands and they could be doing something, and if they were caught and they had a lie detector test administered on them, they would be able to pass with flying colors because in reality they would have no idea what they were even really there for. Because not until this other personality could be triggered would they consciously have any knowledge of what they were doing. And I know this sounds absolutely bizarre. This sounds insane. I'm not the only person to research this by any means. I'm just basically regurgitating to you what other people have come up with. And I've got links here to testimony from victims of MK Ultra. But it really doesn't stop there. This technology, this drive to control, this psychotropic warfare, just the brainwashing that occurs from sitting down and watching television. You don't even know. You just take for granted that when you watch the news that it's reality. You ignore the little digs, the little slants, the way, things can be worded to lead you to believe something that is not even true, even if it's partially true. So now we'll go back and we'll let's just look at the Virginia Tech massacre from last year. We had a kid go crazy, supposedly, by himself, bought some guns. Okay, these are coming from the actual reports now. He went, he bought a gun, bought another gun, went, killed some people, went to the post office, mailed some stuff, went back, killed a ton more people, then shot himself in the head. Meanwhile, you're supposed to believe that he took the time to file the serial numbers off of his guns while being stupid enough to leave the receipt for the guns in his backpack. He, of course, couldn't be identified from his body because his face was, to put it in, simple words, blown off. And, they identified him by taking fingerprints from the guns and comparing them with his immigration records. Now, this is coming from ABC News. They didn't take the fingerprints from his fingers and compare them to his immigration records, as if his fingers had been mysteriously blown off. They took the fingerprints from the guns. And again, typically when someone kills themselves by shooting themselves in the head, they manage to blow the back of their head off, not the front of their face. It's been my opinion from day one that Cho didn't actually mean to die that day. He didn't know he was going to die. That there was someone else involved, and that either Cho or someone that could pass for Cho was executed and left behind. Now remember, initially they were looking for a 6-foot-tall person. They were looking for, and this is very simple to look up, all right? Just go to Google and look this stuff up. Look up Virginia Tech and read the earliest accounts you can get. It wasn't Cho. But then, when you really get into the nitty-gritty of this, we have Cho being linked to the federal government. Cho's sister worked for McNeil Technologies, and she was an administration official in Iraq working at Iraqi Reconstruction. She's dealing with the State Department and all kinds of technological stuff for the federal government in Iraq. Now, this should raise some red flags, but no, this is just perfectly acceptable. It's fine if everyone is somehow connected to the government in one way or another. No need to ask questions. Everything is just totally cool, you know? Well, now we have information coming out from Virginia Tech, and this story is from December 27th, 2007. Virginia Tech engineers share technology with U.S. military. Traumatic brain injury is the signature wound of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but this blast injury often goes undetected. So now we have experimentation going on with helmets that will measure a blast or the velocity of a soldier's head and how that corresponds to brain activity and, different psychological problems that could come from brain trauma. Well, it might not mean anything at all unless you take into consideration the idea of MK Ultra and these mind control experiments. And now, however many months later, it comes out that, yes, there are people at Virginia Tech working with the United States government on technology that involves brain activity. So do I know what happened at Virginia Tech? No, I do not. Do I find it highly unlikely that someone who had trained himself to shoot by playing violent video games was able to carry out such a massacre? Absolutely. Something stinks, and everyone, or just about everyone, had about 20,000 questions when this happened. And again, there were reports questioning why you could have a shooting on a school campus, you could have dead students in a dorm, and again, this was ruled a murder-suicide, even though there was no gun found on the scene, the initial two shootings. And, classes are not closed. Initially, it was a murder-suicide, and then they said, the person who carried out the shooting had fled the campus with no proof. They just, carry on, no problem here. Well, if you look into what's gone on since the Virginia Tech escapade, we have now legislation about to be signed by President Bush that will require stringent background checks on people before they can get guns. But you won't just be checking someone's background to see if they're a criminal. There will be some kind of a psychiatric evaluation involved in this. And what you're not getting here, what you're not being told, is that the majority of the people that these psychiatric evaluations keep from being able to have a gun are ex-military. These are people that served our country. We trusted them with guns. We trusted them to go out and kill or be killed. But we do not trust them here within our own country to have a gun. And one would have to raise the question, why? Why could we trust them on foreign soil but not on our own? Well, personally, I believe that the agenda is to disarm anyone out there that could pose a threat to the New World Order.